Hello, and welcome to episode 37 of When the Flames Go Up, the ATFC podcast with me, Will Brown. And we have a return to the normal scheduling, a panel show with Guy and Julian joining on the line, where we discuss the last three results because we've not had a pod since then. So yeah, that's coming up. Also, we end up discussing shirts at the end of this episode. So we'd like to know what are your favorite old shot shirts and favorite players that you associate with them and favorite moments that you associate with them. Is Are there shirts you just absolutely despise? So either side. Let's start with love, and then we can move on to the ones we hate. Although I did mention that I don't really like the black kits in general. I just associate them with defeat. I don't know. Anyway, enjoy this episode. If you didn't listen to last week's, it's one of our ongoing Aldershot Town all-time 11s. It's the world/international 11 that we put together. So go back on your feed. You'll see that it's in a blue graphic just to make it stand out from the standard red ones. So do that. And yeah, any of your shirt correspondence, feel free to just email atfcpodcast@gmail.com. I think that's about it. I'm going to go sleep for eternity and hopefully wake up in Bradford on Saturday. And with that, enjoy the episode. Up the shots. Right. So we haven't recorded for just under 2 weeks. Oh no, I think it might be exactly 2 weeks. And in that time, the shots have won, drawn, and lost. 2-1 at home to Eastleigh, the turnaround after going 1-0 down. A 0-0 draw at home to Southend on the Tuesday, followed by, most recently, the Hartlepool away defeat with Manny Diasariri once again scoring against Aldershot. I think his fifth time in 6 or 7 games. He seems to pop up every time we play against either Hartlepool or I think he once played against us for Salford. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to come to you first, Guy. It's obviously been a while, but we managed to get 4 points at home. Do you feel like that's a good return? And your general thoughts on how we've played in the last couple of weeks?
Well, I'm reminded of, the last time we recorded, Julian saying that if we came out with 4 points, he'd be satisfied. And here we are with 4 points. And I've got mixed feelings. If you had asked me before the Hartlepool game, I think I would have been pretty happy with the 4 points that we had, gathered. The win against Eastleigh was incredibly satisfying. It was a relief to, finally be back to winning ways after, you know, numerous draws and losses. It was a little bit sort of squeaky bum time, sort of in the last 10 minutes or so, and I was just begging for the referee to blow the whistle and call it a day. And what was really satisfying about that game is that we came from behind, right? Because I think often we have this situation where whoever scores really is going to go on. And so I think for us to have been able to have come, to gone down 1-0, and I think it wasn't it was unfortunate, but I think they showed character, the team, and managed to come back. So I thought they did really well. What struck me was that both defense and attack seems to be sort of doing pretty well. Attack was getting there were some clear chances. Attack's efforts being made on goal. At the back, it was pretty solid, and Dewhurst kept us in it. So very positive. We move on to the next game against Southend, 0-0. I mean, it was a bit backs to the wall. What I tried to think about, what were the positives? The positives to me were that the defense held up. Given how, I mean, I've said this in previous episodes, we've been pretty leaky last season. That wasn't, that we've discussed that. And we really seems to have sort of cracked it a bit this season with being a little bit more tighter at the back. So we did well. But I was a little bit worried about attack because I didn't really see the chances being made, and that was very apparent as well in the Hartlepool game as well. That really came through to me, that when we did have the ball, there just didn't seem to be anything no creativity, no forward play that was going to be anything substantive. I didn't feel that they were going to find the right person, that the final ball was going to be made, that an attack, that a chance was going to be made. I watched the highlights again between Eastleigh and Hartlepool, and it was such a difference. You know, against Eastleigh, they were buzzing. There were chances, going begging. Really, we should have had more than two goals. Against Hartlepool, there was nothing, and so I feel a little bit sort of deflated. And this comes back to the point I said about, had you asked me before Hartlepool, I think I'd have taken those 4 points. Now I'm a little bit meh about it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that also maybe sums up the kind of general overarching mood due to the kind of performances the last couple of weeks, depending on people's views of the Southend game. But it is worth saying that Eastleigh at home is our bogey matchup. So I think it was nine wins in their last 11 visits to the Rec before that. We did manage to turn it around with Barham coming off the bench and kind of it was 2 goals in 6 minutes to turn that one around in the second half. Julian, come to you. What are your thoughts on the 4 points we gained in the home games and Hartlepool at the weekend?
Yeah, hi Will. Yeah, pleased with the 4 points. Yeah, I was quite surprised actually that we did come from behind. As Guy said, that was a real pleasant thing. I always felt watching the game that there was the opportunity to do that, and Eastleigh were there for the taking really. And what really pleased me with that game was that the substitutes had a huge impact on the result, and obviously both of them scored. And yet you look at the Hartlepool game, and it was the complete opposite. The substitutes had no effect on that at all. So back to your question, yeah, 4 points. I was pleased with that. Southend, I think Southend are going to be higher than their position suggests. Yeah, they really did put us to the sword, and I think as Tommy said, you take your point from that sort of game and you move on. But very similar to what Guy was saying, after that game, I was happy. I was looking forward to the Hartlepool game, and I really thought we would give it a go up there. They've only won once at home this season. They're struggling to score goals at home this season, and yet, for the first 5 minutes or so, again, we looked as if we were in really good shape, knocking the ball around nicely. That the commentators were commenting on how well we use the ball. And there's one mistake at the back, unfortunately, which is pounced on, and we're 1-0 down. And from that moment onwards, we never looked like getting back into it, to be honest. The thing for me, I guess, which really shone through, particularly in the Hartlepool game, was we really did look toothless up front. We really did struggle, and Tommy was watching the same game as we were, and I'm hoping that he's putting a plan together for this weekend where we are more effective. I was, as you know, I was obviously commentating on the Yeovil match, and the thing for me when I was watching that match is that Barrett and Henry looked really impressive that day. It really looked as if we'd finally found the answer, but for us to go to then Hartlepool and really offer nothing up front means that we do have to look at changing something, because we can't carry on that way and be so ineffective going forward. I was thinking again, similar to what Guy was saying. I was thinking back to last season and the difference. Obviously, we can look at the players that have gone, but we always played with two up front last season. It was always Barham and whoever, Tolage, but it was always two up front with one just sitting behind. Whereas now it seems much more of a sort of front three, which obviously isn't working as well as it did last season. So, for me, I think Tommy needs to really have a plan B. It just didn't feel like there was a plan B on Saturday. When Hartlepool were just having fun, really. They probably had the easiest game they've had all season, and yet they've only won once at home. So We need to really have a plan B. And when those subs came on, it didn't feel like anything was going to change. So, um, yeah, I'd like to see two up front. We'll get on to the Bradford preview in a minute, but I'd certainly like to see two up front, with one sitting behind, and get James Henry in the position where he's most effective. I thought again on Saturday he's head and shoulders above this league. We all know that, but was he really in an effective position where we could see the benefits of his talents? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, you mentioned kind of an easy day for Hartlepool. It was also a pretty easy day for Southend's defense as well in that 0-0 draw. They looked. I mean, they barely had to break a sweat to keep sweeping the ball up and then getting it back to their midfield, who were crossing across our defense constantly in that Southend game. And then also it kind of the knock on was for about 65 minutes in the Eastleigh game. The Eastleigh defense had a very easy game. I'm forgetting his name, who scored Francois Lotte. I can't remember off the top of my head. He just kind of manhandled Gandor and was probably the man of the match for the entire game, with scoring the goal. And luckily he went off, I think, injured, so we were able to
Yeah,
sweep in
Fran Salette, I think it was.
and
Is it?
Salet, that's it.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and we have mentioned, of course, before the kind of plan B or the lack of, and Kwame Thomas's name has been mentioned quite a few times. And Ollie Bray in the same breath, if when fit, can he offer us a slightly different way to attack? And Henry as well in that Southend game was kind of picking it up with Akpan on the right hand side, and you've got two kind of, well, you'd hope creative and players that are able to create something, kind of in the same place, without a way out or an easy way to get it to our forward players. So yeah, those kind of things in combination haven't haven't inspired confidence that we can create chances. I think is basically the gist of things. Yeah, Guy, any more to add on the kind of recent form, and kind of the position in the league at present?
Yeah, I mean, just, I mean, what? Because I was following the Hartlepool game on the stream, and so listening to the commentators, they seemed quite surprised that we just offered nothing up front, given that we were so free scoring, right? But I think they missed out the fact because I mean, it's a little bit deceptive when you look at what our goals for and goals against are right now, because actually, if you look at the first 10 games of the season, we scored 16 goals and, okay, conceded 15. But if we then look at the last 6 games, right, we've only scored 5 goals and we've conceded 10. So, something is missing up front. And I completely concur with what Julian was saying, that, there's we seem to be lacking something there. And what was really striking was when we then put the substitutes on against Hartlepool, it was just more of the same. There really wasn't much of a change. It's frustrating because these are the same players that were playing at the very beginning of the season who are so free scoring, and now they seem to have sort of just dried up. One thing I did note as well, that I mean, listening to Tommy talking, after the Hartlepool game as well, the thing that really stood out for me was at the very end when he talked about, he seems frustrated, and he had a chat with the players, and he said, some stuff's not coming back there. So something is brewing with some of the players, and they need a bit of shake up, some of them. And I don't know, and maybe this is where we've talked about this in previous weeks, that perhaps we need to be looking towards the transfer window, to see if there's going to be any kind of changes, bring some people in, because right now it's hard to see us getting out of this rut. I mean, we've got the squad, but it's just they're underperforming at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, it seems like, yeah, I did actually look at that. That's quite interesting. You talk about the kind of goals we scored in the early part of the season. I did have a little reminisce of the 4-1 against Oldham, and like the the 3-3 against Forest Green, which does seem a bit of a lifetime away, which I appreciate is only 2 months away, but that's kind of a stark difference to where we are right now. And yeah, Julian, have you got any? I mean, is it a case of just going into the low market and buying a striker that can score us goals, or is it something to do with the people behind them that are giving them the service in order to score the goals? Because I feel as I think Barham's a good National League striker. If he gets three chances, he scores one goal. But he's not. He's getting one chance, and admittedly, he scored that one chance he had against
Yeah,
Eastleigh. But yeah,
you make a really good point, Will. And I think we have got the players that, and Guy said it just there. We have got the players that were free scoring earlier on in the season. And I just go back to my point of, I think we're more effective if we have got two up front. If you look at our strikers so far this season, I think our top scorer out of our strikers must be Haddy, who's got three. Um, and this time last season, we'd probably scored between Barham, Stokes, and Tollardt. They probably got 30 goals by this time last season. It's just so different. So there is that argument that why change something that's working? And I was thinking the other day whether or not um, we look to change things around a little bit to what we were doing last season, and that was primarily having the two up top with one behind. Um, Ashley Akpan has been superb. Perhaps he needs a rest. Perhaps we can look at getting Tyler Frost back in that right wing back position, which he played so well in last season. And if you've got someone that's played so well in that position, then perhaps the argument is, well, let's put him back there for a few games and see what happens. So Josh Barrett has been excellent this season. Ish, he's had his moments, but he has been ineffective in some games. So, would he be better sitting just behind Barham and Gandor plus one other, and then just keeping the centre of midfield tight? I'd love to see Madja come in and start to sort of dictate play in there. Perhaps Hargreaves needs a bit of a break too. You could argue that his performances perhaps have just dropped from his high standards that he was having at the start of the season. I don't like to single out any players at all, but we've got a big squad. I was looking at the squad sizes the other day, and I can't remember if it was Guy you said it that I think we've got the third largest squad in the league. So is that too much quantity rather than quality? You look at Forest Green and Southend, and even teams like Yeovil who are in the playoffs, and they've only used quite a few less players than us. Perhaps it's the injuries that we've been unlucky with injuries, but I'm just wondering whether Tommy really knows at the moment, what his best 11 is and the best formation. He's still struggling, I think, to find that out.
yeah, and worth saying it's not been aided by injuries and suspensions that have meant that players can't get a consistent run in the team, or players that return from injury can't go back in their favoured positions, for example. And yeah, I mean, it's not something we can. It's mainly been the defence, I suppose, that back five that has chopped and changed with Harfield's injury and Jones's suspension and return from injury, uh, and then needing to slot back in centre back, which he's doing. He's doing well in what I've seen. Um, yeah, well, I guess we can turn our attention now, as we're talking about starting 11s, because we don't need to talk about National League stuff for much longer. Because we've got the FA Cup first round to look forward to away at Bradford City at the weekend. £45,000 for the winners and 15,000 for the losers, which is more for what we got for winning the fourth qualifying round, which I don't know why I just don't give you the money early. I don't know. Don't know what I'm trying to say. I think I mentioned it before, but once we've played Bradford, this will be 5 games out of the last 20 in the FA Cup that Aldershot Town have played against Bradford City, which is lovely stuff. And that means they're tied with one other team that we've faced in the FA Cup since 1992, 5 times, which is Maidenhead United. If you got that at home, I'm not sure I give enough time. I'll maybe add in a little break in there so you can treat it like a quiz. Bradford are seventh at the moment in League Two after 14 games, 22 points. They had a bit of a rough spell mid-September, and then turned it around with 3 wins on the bounce, and they're kind of sitting in the playoffs. But were beaten by a strong Doncaster side at home on Saturday. Guy, how are you feeling ahead of this one? And do you think we can spring a surprise and get our first away win in over 2 months on Saturday?
I think we're going away with 15,000, I'm afraid. So, yeah. Still, it's 15,000 more than we would have had, so I'm happy with that. Plus, there's also, don't forget, there's also the revenue from I believe it's also shared attendance based on the attendance. So all of you guys going up, you're all going to contribute, so that's great. And given that Bradford has one of the sort of the biggest attendances in League Two, hopefully that will play over into the cup as well, and so we get a decent payday there as well. No, I'm not very confident, and I thought I'd have a look at the the betting markets to see what they're saying, and yeah, the odds are shortening for Bradford and lengthening for us. It's it's very very much in Bradford's favour. So look, it's only a prediction, but maybe things can work out. Well, interestingly enough, I mean, what would Aldershot need to do now to actually be able to sort of come back with a win? And I was looking at what so there's the width of a post blog which covers Bradford games and match reports. And interestingly enough, I was having a look at what they were said after the Doncaster game, and they said that Doncaster basically did a number on them. They managed to prevent them from playing and sort of exposed their weaknesses. So if Aldershot can expose those weaknesses, then there's a chance. Now the things that have apparently been an issue at Bradford all season have been the fact that yes, they're dependent on Andy Cook to score. He's scored 8 in 10 games, 8 in 10 league games, I think it is. Sorry, in 8 in 14 league games, and so he's very much their top scorer, but he doesn't have an established striking partner yet. So if you can sort of, if the defenders can nullify him, then that will go a long way towards giving Aldershot a chance. The other things as well that we need that need to be done as well is to sort of prevent the supply to Cook. So the wingers, so the midfield, the left and right midfielders, apparently they have been sort of running riot when they have been playing well. So if we can curtail them as well, have a chance. And also just trying to pull out their left and right backs from position. I think it's their left back has been sort of their left midfielder tends to leave quite a bit of space behind him. So when he goes charging up, so if he can get behind him, that might actually make a bit of a difference. And also their central midfielder, apparently Ryan Smallwood. If he sort of if you overwhelm him a bit at the centre of midfield, that can make a difference. So if the Aldershot can make a bit of a game plan to sit back deep, counter the attack which will come, then that gives us a chance. And hopefully and I think let's fingers crossed. But you guys will be there. I will cheer you on from afar. Unfortunately, I will be distant and only being able to follow probably most likely on radio this week.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Andy Cook, of course, the name kind of synonymous in my head for playing at Tranmere. Where it was kind of understudy and overstudy of James Norwood's mad kind of spell at Tranmere as well. Yeah, we have done relatively okay. We're against one striker, which I obviously say slightly, it goes against Manny Diasariri because he will score goals against Aldershot regardless. Yeah, it was just looking back at last season's the game before we played Swindon was Dorking away and we lost 2-1. So is that a good omen, Julian?
Definitely will. You've cheered me up no end by just telling me that.
How are you feeling ahead of the game on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm always optimistic. And the reason I'm feeling optimistic today is that Bradford have in their heads have won it already. Yeah, I guess it's a bit like us against Bath in the last round, isn't it? A team from the lower division, lower down in that lower division, not playing particularly well. So they'll have this same mentality that we had for the Bath game, in that, if we do what we do properly, then we should win the game. But cup football is different, isn't it? And just looking at their players and looking at our players, I think we can match up with them. Andy Cook, as you said, will score goals, but to be fair to Menezes, if he's playing in the centre of defence on Saturday, he will be a really good matchup for Andy Cook. Ashley Akpan down the right hand side, Guy, you mentioned their left winger is quick. There's no one quicker than Ashley Akpan. So I'm confident that if he's on his game, that he's going to look after him too. And like you mentioned, Smallwood in the midfield for Bradford. You stick Cameron Hargreaves on him, and he's going to start panicking. So I really think we have got a chance. And you never know what's going to happen, do you? What happens if they get a player sent off after 10 minutes, and then it all changes. Their defence is not very settled at the moment. They started off with a back three at the start of the season, and it's really unlikely that any of those are going to play on Saturday. So they haven't got consistency in their defence. One player they have got, which sends a bit of a shiver down my spine, is I think it's called Niall Byrne. He's Stockport's defender last season, who ran from his own penalty area and smashed the ball in the net against us last season in the FA Cup. So I just hope he doesn't do that again. But no, I'm confident. I think they're going to underestimate us. They're going to give us a chance to pass the ball around, which means that we will be able to exercise a little bit of control over the game. And who knows? We get a goal, we go 1-0 up, and that Bradford crowd are quite ferocious if their team are behind. And as soon as they went behind to Doncaster, I think it was late in the game actually, but whenever they do go behind, they really do struggle to get back into games. And we've proved already that we can do those things. So actually, strangely enough, I'm feeling confident, which is why I'm driving 580 miles to go and witness this amazing event that's going to happen. Really looking forward to it, Will.
Yes, exactly. You get to see Bradford before it becomes City of Culture, all these kind of things. Yeah, obviously going on from guys talking about the left and right midfields, and obviously, as you said, Akpan can match up to anyone pace wise. It was kind of I was just thinking of the Southend game. Obviously, we had Guy Scott Morris on one side, and I can't think of his name on the other side, but that they did manage to kind of pin back Akpan and Frost, and basically we are unable to get forward with either of those two players. And maybe that's something that we need to kind of, that was the counterbalance last season. They were always able to get past their man or get further beyond their man, or kind of drop defensive duties for a bit and get forward. Obviously, that's why we had a lot of gaps last year, but it's the kind of reason why we conceded 4 at Swindon. It's the reason we scored 7 at Swindon. Those kind of things. So yeah, let's hope we can just release the shackles a bit for an FA Cup game that we can only win. We can't, we can lose, of course, feasibly, but it's not a defeat that's going to define this season or define this group of players. But it is something that could, propel us into an even bigger game or an even better run, which is what this team needs, I think, at the moment, to be fair. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. £15, can't argue with that. And yeah, hoping for a big attendance in Bradford. Be going up on the train, getting there for midday, and yeah, sample the local delicacies, namely beer. I imagine. Any other business? I'm kind of struggling to think of any. They don't want to throw any in, other than I did see that Aldershot are looking to establish a women's team, which is long overdue. I'm not sure what on earth was getting in the way for so many years. So hopefully that all goes well with like trials over this summer, I think, or this summer really, in just we broach into November. So yeah, info's on the website, but hopefully that all goes well. And we've got a women's team that we can support on Sundays to really make it a big weekend of Aldershot sport. Um, yeah, going around the country. Anyone got any other things to add? Go wild, go crazy. Other than we need to talk about our kits. I mean, guys got a kind of retro AFC shirt on. I've got the Aldershot 09-10 Football League. No, 08-09, sorry, Football League shirt. So yeah, send in your suggestions for your best shirt because yeah, Julian's the only one. He's wearing a hoodie, but we can get him in a shirt next week, I'm sure.
I'll put a shirt on for next week. I was just thinking actually, for the shirts that I can see, I always conjure up a name which instantly comes with the shirt. So, Guy, for you, it's Jack Howarth. For me,
Hmm.
Jack Howarth, for the older listeners, will know he was a super striker who scored lots of goals in the 70s. Will Marvin Morgan is
Yes.
you're giving me Marvin Morgan vibes there with the shirt,
Yeah.
and a bit of Scott Donnelly thrown in as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, yeah. I always think of Ben Harding still in a shirt. I know he's a bit more synonymous with the actual promotion season shirt, the red one in my head. Yeah. So yeah, send in your memories, your shirts, all that kind of stuff, and we'll try and kind of build an episode in the next like couple of weeks with discussing our favorite shirts. I was going to say because
And
there's nothing better to do, but it seems like I'm finding a reason not to do it.
and that includes not only home shirts but away shirts and goalkeeper shirts as well, I assume.
Ooh. I mean, I'm just thinking of separate episodes here. No, anything goes. Um, yeah, and if anyone wants to dig into how many wins we've had in black shirts, that'd be good because I don't know why it's synonymous with defeats in my head. Don't know why. We've probably got quite a good record in it, but it just looks like defeats to me.
Well, my 4-year-old was confused by when we were watching Hartlepool at the weekend because he was trying to ask which is our team, because he's used to the one in red and blue.
Can you
Black?
guys remember
Let's
when we
not
last
learn.
had a black away shirt?
Oh God.
Well,
Well,
I
okay,
think
this
it was
this is
the
trivia here.
X4 security one, wasn't it? In
Mm.
13, 14, 12, 13.
Yeah, that's the one I was
Is
thinking
that the
of.
one?
I couldn't think of any other options.
Yeah. Don't think yeah. Didn't, we kind of lost all the time in that kit, but I don't know. In my head, that we did.
The Carbini one as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Carbrini just rubbed off after about two uses. So that's gone. The X4 security is clinging on my shirt. Also, yeah, the badge was really scratchy. And I once wore it for a game of football once, and don't think my left nipple has been the same since. So, so I'll raise it with Carbrini. If
Is
I,
that too much information, Will?
it's a bit, I might bleep that out actually.
But it's a point. I mean, I don't, there's a YouTube channel about a couple of football shirt designers, and that's their big bugbear is about the badges, what they do to you. So well, that's the first thing they go to. That's like, is this smooth? Is this going, or is this going to chafe?
Exactly. It's all that matters really. Because I use mine for running, so the Irea one's beautiful, beautifully soft. Um,
Be
right.
interesting to hear from the listeners their first ever football kit that they
Yes,
got.
I thought you were going to
yes,
say
Because again,
first
that's
ever,
and
first ever
and
shirt
what
that rubbed on you.
and
rubbed
and
your
and
left
and
nipple.
like Julian said, which player it reminds you of as well, right?
Yes, or a goal, or
Yeah.
you know, or a moment.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I'll go very quickly on that because we're going off
we are
completely off
going
topic. But
1 minute,
my
1 minute
first
left, by the way, Julian.
my first shirt was a Manchester United shirt, and it was Gordon Hill,
Oh,
who was an amazing left winger for Man United, and he was one of my first players that I followed. There you go, just throwing that in
there
there.
we go. A little bit of seasoning, ready for the shirt episode that'll be coming up in a couple of weeks.
Not really Aldershot, but okay.
Hey, old shot adjacent, I'd say. Great. Well, we're going to leave it there for this episode, a nice short
All
one.
right.
But thank you, Guy, and thank you, Julian.
No, thank you. And also have a great trip to Bradford, both of you, in the different ways that you're doing it.
Bring it on.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
Up the shots.